What's good, y'all? This season really is flying by. We are already in the conference finals, which just absolutely blows my mind. There's only 4 teams left playing basketball for the season. Just 4. So in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down both the Eastern Conference Finals and the Western Conference Finals, giving my thoughts and my predictions on who is going to win. And in case you guys were wondering what my track record is this season so far, I predicted just 3 series wrong. 2 of them went to Game 7, and I predicted they would go Game 7, but I just picked the other team. I knew that Cavs-Orlando were going 7, but I picked Orlando, and then Timberwolves-Nuggets I had going 7, but I had the Nuggets. Other than that, I've been pretty good on my predictions. And without further ado, let's get right into it, and we're going to start off with the Eastern Conference Finals matchup. We have the number 1 seeded Boston Celtics versus the number 6 seeded Indiana Pacers. And I had a whole video that I just dropped talking about the Pacers because a lot of people are discrediting their run. It is true that they faced some injured teams, but they did what they had to do. They beat the team in front of them. I don't want to go too far into that. If you're interested in that, check out that video. But I see a lot of people saying that this series is over before it starts, that it's going to be a sweep or a gentleman's sweep for the Celtics here. But I wouldn't be surprised if this series is a little bit extended. Kristaps Porzingis missed the entire second round versus the Cavs, and the Celtics were able to handle business still without him. But he is still expected to miss the first 2 games at least of this series. Luckily for the Celtics, they are going to be at home, but they are also kind of like a shaky home team for some reason. They've only lost twice so far in the postseason, and both of those games have been at home. One was to the Heat, one was to the Cavs, and in both of those games, the Heat and the Cavs hit a lot of threes. They outshot the Celtics, which I think is something the Pacers would be able to do. And as we all know, the Pacers have a high-power, fast-paced offense where they just kind of want to go, get as many shots up as possible. And I feel like they could kind of take advantage of some of the Celtics lapses that they've been having so far this season, you know, where they go streaks of just having bad shot after bad shot, or if they kind of just get a little lazy on defense, they have at sometimes here. So I feel like the Pacers have the ability to kind of take advantage of those lapses and really hurt the Celtics. And then also, I'm pretty confident in saying that the Pacers have better depth than the Celtics. The Celtics, of course, have their incredible top 5, top 6 players. But off the bench for the Pacers, they got guys like TJ McConnell, which if you guys follow me on Twitter, you would definitely know I'm a big TJ McConnell fan. He just comes into the game, impacts it incredibly, offensively, defensively, all of it. He gives a lot of effort. Obi Toppin off that bench too has been great offensively for the Pacers. Ben Shepherd has been a great shooter for them. You know, they have solid players coming off their bench to, you know, substitute in and still keep that offense going. So because of all of those reasons, I could see the Pacers extending this series beyond 4 or 5 games like a lot of people are saying. But I do think that it's going to be a struggle to stop the Celtics on defense because the personnel just isn't really too much in these Pacers' favor. The number one thing I'm seeing is who's going to be guarding the Jays, that is Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, because they don't really have any bigger wings or bigger perimeter defenders like that. I would obviously assume Pascal Siakam would be on Jason Tatum just to match that size. Pascal is a plus defender, but that's kind of a lot to ask for Pascal to be the number 1 scoring option, number 2 guy on offense, while also guarding the best player on the other team. And then Jaylen Brown, I would assume they put some Aaron Nesmith on him, being that, you know, bigger wing-ish, bigger, I'm saying, at just 6'5". So they're giving up some size there. Beyond that, they really don't have too many options for either of them, so I could see this being a big series for the Jays. And I know Jason Tatum has been kind of shaky this postseason. You know, he hasn't really had his normal offensive impact, but Jaylen Brown definitely has, especially when you talk about getting to the rim. My man is shooting 80% at the rim. As a wing, he's shooting 80%. That's better than some centers in the league right now. He has been absolutely unbelievable at getting to the rim and finishing. And like I said, with a smaller Aaron Nesmith guarding him, I would assume it could get pretty rough. I could see a big series from Jaylen Brown. Then when you look defensively for the Celtics, obviously they've been one of the best team defenses in the entire league throughout this regular season and the postseason. They've been very good as well. And when you look at their personnel, they have great personnel to match up with the Pacers. Throughout this entire series, Tyrese Halliburton is going to be guarded by either Derek White or Jrue Holiday. It's going to be very difficult for him to feel comfortable and get a shot going or get his, you know, normal game going, because those are some of the best perimeter defenders in the entire league. And we saw last series versus the Knicks, the Pacers had a lot more size than the Knicks. You know, Pascal Siakam and Miles Turner, those double big lineups. They even ran some lineups where Obi Toppin was in there with those two as well to really get some size on the court. But the Celtics have that size to really match. They have Porzingis, who will be coming back later in the series. Al Horford, Jason Tatum is pretty big at that, power forward, small forward. I call it a power wing position. They have that size, those bigger bodies to throw out there instead of, 6'4" Josh Hart and 6'3" Dante DiVincenzo running your forward positions. I do think the Pacers have enough firepower to keep up in a shootout. I think they would be able to keep up with the many threes that Boston will make and take. But I think the Celtics also know that, so I think they will really lock in defensively, make sure that this is more of a gritty type of game, and that's not the Pacers type of game they want to play. They want to go fast, like I said before. And with all that being said, I do think this is going to be more of a series than people are letting on. I was going back and forth between Celtics in 5 and Celtics in 6, but I'm going to give the Pacers the benefit of the doubt. They're undefeated at home so far, and like I said before, I wouldn't be surprised if they did steal one of those first 2 games from the Celtics at home. So I'm going to go with Celtics in 6 as my prediction. Now moving out to the Western Conference Finals, we have the 3-seeded Minnesota Timberwolves versus the 5th-seeded Dallas Mavericks. And I know parity has been a huge talk around the NBA this season, that there's the most parity we've seen in a while. And that's very true. You can see that in this matchup. I don't think a single person would have predicted a Dallas Mavericks Minnesota Timberwolves conference finals at the beginning of the season. But I absolutely love it. We're going to have Luka versus Ant, these 2 young up-and-coming superstars, future face of the league, potential type of guys. I'm really excited for this series. I think it has potential to be one of the best throughout this entire playoffs. It's going to be a very defensive series too, though. Both of these teams are locked down on defense, really secure that paint. It's going to be a lot of defense played. And I think the Timberwolves match up pretty well against the Mavericks as well. You can have Jaden McDaniels matched up with Luka Doncic. That long arms and length that Jaden McDaniels brings to the court. It always seems like Luka gets most bothered by those guys with length. There's only so much you could do to really bother Luka Doncic, but I think Jaden McDaniels could do some of the best jobs at it. Then you could put Anthony Edwards on Kyrie Irving. We just saw, especially in Game 7, but also in parts throughout that series, he did a really good job guarding Jamal Murray, who's one of those shifty guards. Obviously, Kyrie's got a little bit more quickness and shiftiness to him, but I think Ant can really stay in front of him, and this also allows Rudy Gobert to kind of just roam in the paint. He doesn't have to worry about matching up with a superstar center like Nikola Jokic. He can kind of just roam in the paint. Got to watch out for those lobs to Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford. But, he's pretty much throughout this whole series going to be living in that paint. I think the Mavs match up pretty well also, though. You have Derrick Jones Jr. with his length and quickness on the defensive end to put over on Anthony Edwards, chase him around the perimeter a little bit. PJ Washington can be put on Karl Anthony Towns. It's a very, very good thing that the Mavericks really bolstered up their front court at the trade deadline, adding PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. Because if they were still running 6'6" Grant Williams out there, wow, Karl Anthony Towns would be having a series. Also for the Mavericks, Luka Doncic has been looking more and more like himself as the playoffs go on. To end off the last 3 games of last series, he had 3 consecutive triple-doubles. He was putting up the stats pretty much all playoffs versus the Clippers and versus OKC, but more versus OKC, he's starting to get his efficiency back up where, he's shooting the 3-ball well, he's shooting from the field well all around, while also still keeping up this crazy points, rebounds, and assist numbers. And obviously, the Timberwolves are going to be focused on stopping Luka and Kyrie being the top 2 scoring options on the Mavericks. Most of their offense comes from those 2 guys. So it's going to be very, very important that guys like PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr. keep their shooting up. Both of these guys have been shooting incredibly throughout the playoffs, and they need to keep that up, because if they don't, it's going to be really easy for the Timberwolves to just collapse the paint even more and make it super difficult for Luka and Kyrie to get their shots going. The Mavericks don't really get too much shooting from anywhere else besides, those 4 guys I mentioned, Luka, Kyrie, and then PJ and Derrick Jones Jr. Guys like Tim Hardaway Jr. or Josh Green, even Dante Exum, these guys shot it pretty well throughout the regular season, and it just kind of really fell off a cliff throughout these playoffs, so it's going to be detrimental that they can keep that spacing open. When it comes down to it, though, I think this is a series where you're going to have your superstars just will you to a victory. Whether they're just packing the paint, I think we're going to have to see Luka Doncic just drop a 40-point triple-double to win the Mavericks a game. Same thing with Anthony Edwards, this great Dallas Mavericks defense. I think we're going to have to see him have a 40-piece in this series as well. I think that's how I'm just feeling the vibe from this. I think it's going to be super gritty, and you're just going to have to give the ball to your best player and be like, yo, make a play. We need you to do something here. I feel like that's the vibes I'm getting from this. And if I'm being honest, I want the Mavericks to win. You know, I'm a pretty big Luka fan. Kyrie Irving is one of my favorite players to watch in the league. Just all in all, this team has been really fun to watch. Kind of like the misfit thrown together role players they've had. Guys like Derrick Jones Jr., PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford. You know, none of these guys really contributed to winning so far in their career, but now that's exactly what they're doing, and I just kind of like the story around it. But if I'm being honest, I got to take the Timberwolves in this one. I trust their defense a little bit more, considering they've been the #1 defense throughout this entire season. I think that they're going to pull this one out in this defensive matchup throughout this, and I'm picking Timberwolves in 6. Let me know what you guys think of my predictions, though. Am I right? Am I wrong? Let me know what you guys think are going to happen. What would be your dream finals matchup? If we're talking dream finals matchup, it would probably be the Mavericks versus Celtics. But honestly, regardless of what's going to happen, I think it's going to be a pretty good finals matchup. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you leave it a like, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. In the description, there's links to all my social medias, so make sure you follow me on all those to keep up to date with me. Catch ya.